Hey everybody, this is James with 802 Garden Gurus. I'm coming at you today with a special video about building a Nanobrewery stand. Most people probably don't know I'm a TIG welder, have been for 10 years, and my full-time occupation is making wonderful contraptions out of stainless steel. Today I have a simple stand which will hold 2 kegs and 1 megapot. It is a nano brewery for a local individual here in Vermont who I am building it especially for, and I would like to walk you through how the process actually works for all those who don't know welding and metal fabrication. You can get a taste of how we make drawings on paper come to life. And the first step is the drawing, of course. You get the material, cut the material up, you lay the material out on a true flat table, and you build it in flat pieces. As you can see, I got the top here all built on the table. It's welded together, the top piece. It's upside down. I've welded the legs together individually on the table in the flat as well, and those get mounted onto the frame just as you see here. It's important that every aspect of the frame be as true as possible, and the right angles and everything be square. You can see this is one of my nice welds. Look at those nice rainbow colors. It's 304 stainless steel polished. It's going to be a beautiful frame. Let me walk you through it. Here we go. So after you build it in the flat, you begin to 3D it, as I'm doing here. I have my vise clamp and a piece of aluminum that I've milled so it has a flared edge that catches, that's perfectly straight, a straight edge, and then I use it to mock pieces into place to set the pieces up. Before I tack weld them into place, I make sure everything's flush, the pieces are squared up, and all the dimensions are properly adjusted and corrected. Once the dimension, I'm happy with the dimensions and where everything is laid out, I will begin to tack the piece together. After I, of course, check and recheck the square, how square it is. Tacking is literally just a zap with the TIG welder, and it's strong enough to hold the piece into place until I get the whole frame tacked together. As you can see, I have one lower cross member that connects both legs lengthwise, tacked on there. So now I will begin to 3D, as it's called, the rest of the frame by measuring out and tacking in the remaining pieces. So now we have a center piece, stainless tube, which is tacked in the middle, and the easiest way to do this is obviously on the table that is true and flat, and everything turns out flush. Once I recheck my square and I like where it is, I tack it up. If I have to make any final adjustments to the square to make it square, I do so. I check and recheck my measurements. It's important that things are accurately laid out so the frame ends up just like the drawing. It's simple as that. When you're laying out vertical pieces that are free standing, it's even more important to check the square and to clamp them in proper positioning before welding. As you can see here, the frame is almost fully tacked together in the sense it's been 3D'd. I will continue to work with the remaining pieces until the whole frame is 3D'd. Here's another angle of the frame. This is a very simple process. And that's yours truly, tacking the freestanding piece to its final destination before I lay on the final lower cross member connecting the legs here. Sometimes I may need to use a bar vise, a bar clamp, and this helps squeeze any discrepancies together, and so I can tack it without having to strain myself too much. I use tools to make my work much easier. It's all about brain over brawn, obviously, and that's my philosophy. And so with this simple methodology, I can build frames, I can build just about anything pretty effortlessly. Just takes a lot of forethought. And you can see here I have got the members clamped together. I got everything where I want it, and I'm doing the final tack up, the final 3D. Here I am with the frame completely tacked up. Well, I'm wrong, sorry. There's one more center cross member that needs to be tacked into place before we can begin the final welding. When it's all said and done, this frame will support between 800 and or 600 and 800 pounds. It's rated for 1500. Here I am tacking the final vertical support in the center. This will distribute weight amongst the surface area of the top of the stand evenly. Constantly check and recheck square. As things get welded, they tend to warp and move, so you have to compensate by welding on the opposite side of the material you're using. So we check and recheck our square constantly. The square is my best friend. I have many of them. And the measuring tape. The measuring tape and the square are my best friend. I can build anything with them. Here's the frame completely tacked up. As you can see, it looks just like the drawing, very simple. So now I flip the frame over and I begin welding, the final welding, which will permanently join sections of the frame and ultimately create its structural integrity. And here you can see a junction of 3 pieces, and this is the beautiful weld that results. Those are just fuse welds. Here is another weld. This is a filler. I use filler to fill in, as per se. I use filler to bring in the material thickness of the gap to that of the pipe tube. This is a picture, obviously, of the brightness of the weld, 10 times brighter than the sun, very powerful. Burn your eyes right out if you look at it too long. Ultraviolet light takes the dye out of your clothing. And here's the frame, completely welded. The next step is to use a compressed air powered tool, and I have a stainless steel wire wheel, and I use that to blend to clean up the welds, which is easily done and creates a nice stainless finish. Sometimes I need to use a stainless handheld brush, like a toothbrush with stainless bristles, and I can clean up 90-degree angles, right angles, and then I can go in there with a air compressed tool and finish the job and make the weld blend with the polished stainless steel, so you get a nice shiny polished appeal. It's a very simple process, but if you've never done it before, it may be very complicated to you. So in this photo you see I have my handy dandy die grinder with a stainless steel wire wheel attachment, and this is the primary method for cleaning the finished welds. Also, one must use denatured alcohol and rags, clean off any debris, clean off any oils on the frame to, finally to give it a finished look. It only adds to the detail of the frame, and it really makes it shine. This is the first part of the frame. Here is a joint which shows the finished product. Beautiful, right? You see it looks just like they were formed like that. Like there's no welding, like it's one unit, one piece. Very nice. Another angle of the junction of 3 tubes coming together, and the finished welds blends together nicely, creates a nice shiny polished finish. And this is 304 stainless steel, so it is a true stainless steel. With the flat table, we make sure that the stand is square in the sense of how it sits on the ground. Here's a shot of the mitered joint that comes together. Miters always look very nice. Another shot of the miter. You can see that it's a very clean looking detail once you're done wire wheeling it and cleaning up the weld. It creates for a beautiful finish. Once the frame is all welded, I have to begin the process of creating the attachments which will hold the burners. On each end of this stand, underneath the top of the stand, will be 2 burners mounted. These are going to be 2 large propane burners, and they need to be adjustable up and down. So shortly, in a moment, you will see how this process works. The individual who I'm building this stand for bought these custom burners offline, stainless steel burners. I took them another step and I designed the burners to attach to the frame so he has very easy ability to remove them and install them. As you can see here, there's a nut I welded to the inside of the burner shroud, so you can use literally one hand to mount and dismount these burners. And in a moment you'll see how they mount up. So there's the through hole, the stainless shroud around the burner with the nut on the inside. Here's the two burners, and these are the two brackets on the burners are custom designed by me, so they can be mounted and dismounted with one hand only. It's a slotted open-ended slot which will allow the individual to install the burner one-handed, hang the burner, and then attach the remaining 3 bolts for each burner with very minimal effort. And he will have a maximum range of 1.5 inches of adjustment up and down from the center of the stand top's tubing. So he has the ability to adjust the distance from the bottom of his kegs by 1.5 inches. Here you can see the burner mounted in its in the bracket work which supports it. 14 gauge stainless steel bent into right angles with slotted through holes which allow the bolts to mount into the shroud of the stainless burner. The bracket on the far side, the back side of the stand, has a hook which hangs the burner and also bolts it into it, and then has the open-ended slot which allows the burner to be slipped up in from the bottom to finally bolt on the 3 remaining bolts, giving him easy adjustment, easy removal, easy installation, like I've already said. Here is the left burner. Both burners are interchangeable. You can put the left and the right and the right and the left. That's the beauty of what I do. I can make anything possible. There's a 1/4-20 nut that locks the open-ended slotted bracket into the frame. This is by far probably the easiest nanobrewery stand, microbrewery, whatever you want to call it, to adjust and fine-tune for a microbrewery operation. Lastly, the tubes are not second to last. I put a 14 gauge stainless steel plate in the center which will hold the pumps for circulating fluid in the brewery operation, and he gets solus inserts with a 3/4-20 nut on the inside that, or 3/4-10, that gets stem casters inserted, locking stainless steel stem casters, adjustable, get inserted, and now his nano brewery stand is complete and ready for final production. It's ready to be assembled the rest of the way. He can move it around freely all over his garage wherever he needs it to go, and he has the ability to make many different adjustments in the aesthetic beauty of fine stainless steel craftsmanship. And that's about it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. Please rate and subscribe.